That's not the clicker.
Oh, this one.
No, it's right here.
Okay, so I had The Quickening Maze by Adam Foulds, and so my interpretation of the title is, well, first it's about a poet, John Clare, who's institutionalized at High Beach in Epping Forest, and so my interpretation of the title is that, well, typically a forest is where people could easily get lost, like it kind of all looks the same, and so the more he's in this area or in the asylum, like trying to find his identity, the more he gets lost. And I think the forest is representative of his mind. And so the more he's here in this area, institutionalized, the more he loses himself and loses touch with reality. And the claim I'm making is that his mental state really defines his identity, and as his insanity spirals, he fails to be able to find his true identity. And so this is John Clare. He was an actual historical figure, and he actually was institutionalized at High Beach in Epping Forest. And this is the author, Adam Foulds. And so, since the book is from the perspective of a writer or a poet, it's very descriptive, and like it'll take a couple pages to describe the setting and the surroundings and stuff like that. And he just like absorbs all of the surroundings. And you really get a taste of his like insanity through the narration, because he's a writer, so throughout the book it'll show you like glimpses of his writing and his poetry. And so the points of conflict are he has a lot of inner conflict because he can't grasp, or he can't come to terms with the fact that he's not free, and that the longer he stays here, the less chance he'll have of being free and finding true identity. And he struggles like with grasping this, and there's a quote where it says he reminded himself he was an inmate, a prisoner. He was due back at Allen's, the asylum at present, and at present it was enough to have gone through the day, but the thought of it made him all want to kick. So he's constantly at unrest, and he can't find peace or find a true identity. And his state of imprisonment never really leaves his mind. And he gets out of the prison. Initially, he's allowed to, they give him a key, and that's the guarding the gate is his duty. And so he'll go on trips, but he has to be back by the end of the day. But he notices that even when he's outside the prison, where he or the asylum, where he thinks he'll be free, he still can't find peace, or he still can't find himself. And so, yeah, he's imprisoned in his own mind as he continues to try harder to find an identity. And so he has multiple personalities kind of. So in trying to find an identity, he'll become this fighter guy. He'll just fight people. He calls himself Jack Randall when he does this. I don't know why. But and then there's a part in that's the writer, and he expresses himself a lot through that, and expresses his thoughts and his efforts to find an identity. And as a part of that, he kind of pretends to be Shakespeare sometimes, and it's just the more he tries to find, the more he makes an effort to find an identity, the more fragmented his thoughts are, the more fragmented his personality is. And some more delusions. So Mary and Patty, Mary is a sweetheart from his childhood days, and Patty's his wife, and so he kind of confuses them. He thinks he's married to both of them, and this just kind of represents his delusion, in his loss of touch with reality, and also time. It's something he struggles with a lot. He'll lose track of time, staying out in the forest too long and not being back when he's supposed to. And he writes that time's walls were the strangest prison. He couldn't touch them or bloody his head against them, but they surrounded him with a gap and kept him from his loves, from his home, lost in the woods, miles away from them. So time represents his separation from his former life, from his freedom, and from his former identity as an actual poet, with a career in writing. And so time is just, the more he thinks about time lost, the more it's a reminder of his state of imprisonment. And the resolution, like there's no real resolution. Like he makes it out of the prison and like leaves and tries to go home, but you know, like the forest is like a maze to him, like just like his mind, like he keeps getting lost. And so he leaves to try to reestablish himself and find an identity, but in the process he just loses touch with reality even more and like can't find his identity because his mental state keeps deteriorating. And he, through his journey to try to like come home and leave the prison and become free, he loses himself more. And I personally wouldn't put it in the Bishop Lynch curriculum just because there's a lot of, you know, like all these other books, there's just a lot of like disturbing things, like, and a lot of like graphic details about just like stuff that's not really essential to the overall like theme of the book. And so that's it.